Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of Suddenly Single. So excited that you're joining us. So today, I wanted to talk about emotional intelligence and what are our emotions telling us. For most of us, we go from day to day and we don't even think about what it is that we're putting our energy and focus on. But if you understand that everything in this world is made up of energy and vibration, then you begin to understand that, oh, so are my emotions. And then you can begin to really examine your emotions and understand if these are things that are true emotions or things that you've taken on based on beliefs or experiences when you grew up. And I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a young boy in school and he's looking out the window and he's daydreaming all the time. And the teacher keeps trying to get his attention, but his mind is in another place. So the teacher is thinking, oh, this boy's lazy, he's stupid. Maybe he even says this to him, like, hello, is there anything you can do here? Can you pay attention in class? What's going on? But he doesn't realize that there's a lot of turmoil in this boy's home, in his family life right then. Perhaps his parents are fighting a lot or going through a divorce, or maybe, there's addiction or other kinds of abuse going on. And school has become an escape for him. And he can't do anything else. He's doing the best that he can to cope. But when labels start being put on people, especially at a young age, we absorb them as truth. You see, the subconscious mind, from the age that we're born until they say like 6 or 7 years old, our brain is in the theta brainwave state. And that is kind of a state of hypnosis. And so things get absorbed into our subconscious, and we just have to take them as truth because we do not have the skills yet to discern what is reality and what is not. And we can't say, no, that's not right. That's not who I am. I'm just going through this bad time right now. And so what happens, these labels just keep getting piled up on us, and we just take them as truth. See, the other powerful thing with the subconscious mind is it doesn't understand the difference between what is reality and what is false. So when a false statement is heard over and over again, the subconscious mind is going to read it as true. It also doesn't comprehend negatives. So, when you say to a kid, don't slam the door or stop screaming, what do they hear? Slam the door or to scream. And so we have to really begin to look at our language, what we're saying to other people around us, but also more importantly, what are we saying to ourselves? When you change that statement from don't slam the door to please close the door quietly, you can hear a completely different in the energy of that statement. Because one is positive and it's easier for us to hear and to respond to. Now, I really believe we're kind of hardwired for negativity just because we're surrounded by so much of it, not necessarily maliciously, but just because we weren't taught to do things differently. And for the majority of us, we grew up with statements like, don't slam the door, instead of, can you close the door quietly? What I want you to start doing is really start to assess what it is that you are saying to yourself and you're saying to other people around you. Because if you understand that our bodies are 80% water, then what we are saying to ourselves is powerful. Dr. Emoto in Japan actually did this really amazing experiment on water, and you can look it up online. And basically, what he did was he took water. Let's say one of them was from a dam in Japan that was really heavily polluted. And he took out a cup full of the water and he froze it. And then he took a microscope to the crystals in the water to see what they look like. And the crystals were ugly and brown and discolored and disformed, really ugly to look at. And then he took a bunch of monks over to that same polluted dam and had them pray over the dam. And then he took out another cup full of water, froze it, and looked at the crystals. And all of a sudden, they were like beautiful snowflakes, just really interesting in designs and really, really beautiful. So, our words are really powerful because if we're 80% water and we go around saying negative things about ourselves, it will have an effect on our psyche because everything is energy and vibration. And if you believe these negative things that, oh, I'm stupid or I'm fat or I'm too slow or I can't do anything, I can't accomplish anything. Well, when we don't deal with those emotions in a positive way, they have to come out some way. And if you break down the word disease, what do you have? Dis-ease. And so our self-talk is really, really important that we take control over what we are saying to ourselves. And when something negative happens, that we begin to assess it. And if we need to speak to somebody outside, a therapist, a coach, somebody else to help us overcome these negative self talk, then we need to do that for our higher good. Because the more that we stay in these negative places, the more disease that we often bring on ourselves. Nothing is created from a vacuum. I had a client once, or somebody I knew in one of the towns I was living in, and it was really sad. She was married to a narcissistic man, and she was around my age, maybe a couple years older than me. And, severe diabetes, obese, always negative self talk because her husband beat her down constantly. And he beat her down so much that I told her really the only way she was going to regain her health is if she left her marriage. But of course, she didn't have the emotional strength to do that. And so I really felt like with her that unless she was ready to take our coaching seriously and do the work that she needed to do to build herself up so she could eventually leave, her emotional situation just would not change. Now, I don't advocate divorce for everybody. I think in a lot of times marriages can be saved if people begin to change their perspective. Sometimes we get stuck in looking at the negative qualities in this person and forgetting why it was that we married him to be or her to begin with. We have to be realistic about what the goals are. But when somebody is a narcissist, they don't ever see their side of the problem. They will never take ownership and they will always blame you for everything. And so that kind of relationship is not a healthy relationship. And the best way to heal yourself is to extricate yourself from that relationship. Another tool is to begin to change our perspective on the past. What we think happened, something may have happened that was bad. or uncomfortable. But what happens is when we keep telling that negative story over and over again, oftentimes we end up embellishing that story so much that the original event could be completely changed. And from what it looks like now, it was just catastrophic, or maybe it was something that was small or medium, but because you've blown it out of proportion to make yourself feel good or worthy of these negative emotions, you're not telling the true story anymore. When we begin to change our perspective on life and how we view things, one of the things I talk about all the time, which I think is probably the most underrated and most powerful tool for changing your life, is to begin to understand that everything that happens to you in this life is for your good, whether you understand it or not. Most of the time we don't understand it, or we do not see the blessings in it for maybe 5, 10, 20 years down the road. What happens when you begin to express gratitude for even those hard events as they happen, instead of letting them eat away at you and bring yourself down? And that can look like, God, this is really, really hard, and I don't know why I'm going through this right now, but I trust it's for my highest good, because I know whatever you give me is there for me to grow and to have a closer connection with you. I don't have to see the big picture right now to understand that this is all for my highest good. So I'm not saying you can't acknowledge that it's hard. You can. But how many times have events happened to us, and then we can look back 5, 10 years later, maybe longer, and really see the blessings behind those events? I'll tell you a great story. There was a gentleman that I had met here in Israel in 1995, maybe 96. That was when there was a whole lot of bus bombings. Rabin had been shot. And this gentleman every day would take a certain bus to work. He would meet a colleague at the bus stop, and they would take the bus together. And this one particular day that they got on the bus, the only place where the two of them could sit together was in the very back row of the bus. And this gentleman refused to sit back there. And so they ended up splitting up that morning, and he took a seat closer to the front, and his colleague took one in the back seat of the bus. Well, unfortunately, on that bus, there was a suicide bomber, and his friend perished, along with many other people. And he said that he remembered having an out-of-body experience and hovering above the bus and watching as the paramedics and other people were pulling people off of the bus, and the carnage and everything that was going on before his soul was returned to his body. He told this amazing story. He said when he was 13 years old in New York, every day he would take the bus to school and back, or wherever he was going. And one particular day he was sitting in the back seat of a bus, and he got mugged. And that experience scared him so much he refused to sit on the back seat of a bus again. Now, God understands the bigger picture here, and we don't see it right away. So God orchestrated it. He knew that 30 years down the line, this man needs to be saved in a bus bombing. And the only way to do that is to have him get mugged in the backseat of the bus when he's 13 years old. And that's what happened. So we do not see the bigger picture. Sometimes we have a glimpse of it later in our life and understand why we had to experience certain events. And sometimes we'll never figure it out. But when those events happen, earlier is saying, thank you for this event. I don't know why I have to experience this, but I'm going to trust that this is for my highest good later on and grow from that experience. And the more that you do that and you can move into gratitude, the little things that happen in your life are so easy to wash over because you understand that, you know what, I don't need to get sucked into those emotions negatively anymore. And it has been life changing for me. So again, we don't see the big picture. We don't understand what's going to happen 10, 20 years down the road. We don't understand how the subconscious mind codes these events into our subconscious. We also don't know if part of this event that we're going through that we have to do healing on is maybe from a past life. I know that's a little controversial. I do believe in past lives. But I think it's important to understand that energetically and karmically, sometimes we need to experience things for our highest good. And so when we move into gratitude and trust that everything is for our highest good to help us to grow, to create that relationship with God or source energy, and to help us to move to be the best version that we can be, all of a sudden, we have a completely different perspective on life. So I want to encourage you today. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the Daily Dose, Part 1, and the topic is, how do we move through grief? Welcome back, and if you followed my video on Sunday, we spoke a lot about grief and the different ways it shows up in our life, and really making a choice to move through those negative emotions. So just to reiterate, I gave an amazing tool that people can use, and you can do this on yourself, or if you know anyone who knows how to do energy healing a little bit, they can help you as well. And what you want to do is notice where you're feeling those emotions in your body, because they always show up somewhere. It could be in your stomach, it could be in your throat, it could be in your heart, it could be in your shoulder or your leg, other parts of our body. And once we become aware of where those emotions are stored, then we can begin to release them. Because they're not supposed to stay stuck in our body. This is how disease happens. When we ignore them and stuff them down further and further, more and more things on them, and don't allow them to process. So one of the ways to process it is, once you become aware of where those feelings are, tell it it's okay. It's okay that it's feeling whatever the emotion is, whether it be grief or sadness, whatever the emotions are, just let it know that it's safe and it's okay. And we have to learn to surrender into those emotions and into the pain. Because once we can learn how to surrender into the pain and send it love and let it know it's safe, that's the only way we can begin to really move through it in a really healing and positive way. So we are not supposed to be stuck in these negative emotions. We're supposed to release them and resolve them and grow from the experience to be our best and highest good. So acknowledge them, become aware of them, and release them before you allow those emotions to affect your life in a really negative way, or the people around you in a negative way. It's okay to grieve for a certain period of time, but when it goes on too long, then you're missing the boat. It's like that gentleman that I knew whose mother, his father had passed away during a very important holiday, and the mother refused to celebrate the holiday after that point and refused to be with family. Now, her late husband wouldn't want that from her, but why is she living in this guilt or this negative headspace for so long? Who's it serving? So use these tricks. The peace process is awesome. If you need help, I'm here to help you. And I'd love it if you guys could join my Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/suddenly single now, because I am launching a TV show next week, or maybe Tuesday this week. And I'd love for you to be able to come on and ask me questions. And I'm going to have experts also to help women in their journey of becoming single, whether it be through divorce or if they lost a loved one, and really how to get back on your feet so the next chapter of your life will be amazing and on your terms. So I look forward to seeing you on Thursday with the next daily dose. And until then, start to write a gratitude journal. Make a list of 50 things that you're grateful for. I know it sounds really crazy, and everybody always says, 50 things, how can I do that? But there's so many things that we take for granted. And I want you to not take those things for granted anymore. So you can put on there that you have eyes to see, that you have a mouth, you can talk, you can chew, you can taste food, you have a nose that you can smell all the scents of the world. Some of them not so pleasant, but the majority of them are really, really nice scents. I mean, I love walking down the street and all of a sudden I get a smell of honeysuckle or whatever. And I acknowledge that when it happens. Like, thank you, God, for allowing me to smell this beautiful scent while I'm walking down the street. You have legs that you can walk. You can go downstairs. You can go visit neighbors. You have arms that you can feed yourself, dress yourself, hug people that you love. So you have so many more blessings in your life that you are not acknowledging. And I want you to start reading that list even before you get out of bed. 10 things. Can you imagine before your feet hit the floor, if you start to say to God or source energy, hey, you know what? Thank you for the great night's sleep. And if it was okay sleep, how about thank you for the hours of good sleep I got? Thank you for the warm, comfortable bed and the pillow and that I have a roof over my head and four walls around me. And whatever it is that you can think of right then, start naming them off. And you're already going to start to change your perspective. Look in the day. You're going to be able to start to view everything with gratitude. And when you find yourself in those negative self-talk or conversations with people, start to catch yourself. And at the beginning, maybe it's once a week. But it's like any other muscle. You need to build this up. But let me tell you, miracles happen when you begin to look at your life in gratitude. because God or source energy has huge shoulders and can give you everything you desire. The difference is you need to start believing that you're worthy of those blessings. So I'm really excited that you're here joining me on this show. And I am scheduling now some really amazing, amazing people that are going to help you on your journey of being suddenly single. I'd also like you to be able to call into the show and ask your questions, whether it be of me or the experts that I have on my show. And so the way, in order to get the way on the live recordings, will be to join our Facebook group. And I'll put it up here. So you can join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/suddenly single now. And let's make this show epic. I want this show to be for you. So if there's certain professionals or people that you want to come on the show to help you to grow and learn, whether it be more about budgeting. I'm working, talking with a financial planner now about coming on, and lawyers and real estate people, and really trying to get a group of professionals that will help you in your journey to through singlehood, to create the next chapter of your life on your terms. So I look forward to seeing you next week.